Sorrowful be the heart, viewers, and welcome back to Blasphemous.
Well, sorrowful until you level up anyway. Then you'll feel a lot better inside.
So we've beaten the boss, but we have yet to actually get the proper reward for doing so.
Oh, Tomb of a Pope. All right.
You get to invade his nightmares.
At least those guys in the background died riding the sickest wave of their lives.
Hang 10, brah! Forever!
En nombre del suplicio mayor y de los hijos del milagro.
And this is one of the holy visages. We will be meeting them after defeating each of the first 3 bosses of the game.
In that when you walked up to it, I went, holy!
Quite literally in this case.
Yeah.
That is some be not afraid shit.
Yeah, there is some imagery in this game.
Y borre la atrición de vuestra alma. Corazón de la culpa. Regresad ahora del sueño.
But you really did invade his dreams. Congratulations. I didn't know you had that power.
The dream is, I guess it's kind of the passage between life and death. There are multiple characters who will use I will meet you on the other side of the dream as a parting greeting.
Headed to Il Purgatorio.
Hey, Dia Gracias, what's up?
Oh, he's here to document that sweet victory.
La primera humillación
You haven't paid your taxes in 5 years, Penitent One. I'm here to collect.
Hey, we've got 1856 something.
A los que postraros.
So this area is the Desecrated Cistern. We won't actually be spending that much time in here on our first playthrough.
Well, that's a bit of a foreboding way to phrase that.
It's a bit too early for a sewer level, I think.
Honestly, I agree. Second video, way too soon. Where are we headed instead?
I am trying to remember. So I'm looking through the footage here. There's a bit of backtracking, but we're also going to be going later on to the second major area, and this is a fast travel portal.
That's terrifying.
I mean, it's handy. There are 2 different types of fast travel. One is this, and the other is optional. It requires a bit more monetary investment, let's say.
You know, on the other hand, I think you have a point. Fair enough. It's useful. Oh, speaking of useful, at least now you won't go hungry.
Well, we're saving this bouquet. This is for Tirsos, the guys from the Kisser of Wounds in Albaro.
It's not for stew?
No.
No, we just take a hank of it and just chew on it to pass the time.
Yeah, like Clint Eastwood. That's what we basically are. We walk in, kick ass, and then feel sad about it later.
Yeah, it's the same amount of dialogue, too.
I love this art.
I am legitimately trying to decide if his movements are drawn over someone actually acting it out.
It could be rotoscoped, but I have no idea. They did it at an intentionally slow frame rate, if so.
I'm just thinking about how difficult it's going to be to make YouTube thumbnails out of these cutscenes. I don't think I'll be able to do it.
You have the content warning. It's okay.
So, each Mea Culpa shrine, just visiting it, upgrades your attack power, in addition to serving as, a place for a skill tree. So you can see that there's various tiers that are locked away, and those tiers get unlocked. That's Tier, not the Tears of Atonement. But each of those get unlocked for each shrine that you visit.
It's a good way to gate things, because there are some that we physically can't reach right now, even if we want to, but there are a couple that we can. So if you want to go out of your way to go get them as soon as possible and then do all the side quests maybe a little later when you're more powerful, you can. The game is a little agnostic about that, ironically, for a religious game.
Misericordioso seáis.
What would an atheist skill tree look like? Supposed to be agnostic.
They'd be empty.
Or it would deny that the moves even exist.
I like that.
Hit square to post on Twitter.
Oh no.
Podemos evitar este destino que se nos impone desde las altas voluntades.
In fact, on this first playthrough, I don't actually visit all the shrines, but it does carry over into New Game Plus. New Game Plus is a whole thing, which I will explain more about that once we actually get to that first playthrough. Anyway, here's another area of the dream, I guess. The linen cloth that Tirsos gave us is an object that could be blessed.
Este lugar es un sueño más, penitente. Ellos me creyeron un santo digno de devociones y lo único que concedí a sus peticiones fue el salitre, que recorre esta inhóspita tierra y sube por nuestros cuerpos. El castigo del milagro al falso ídolo es otorgarle falsa santidad. No queráis saber mi nombre, pues también está cubierto de sal. Traedme lo que pueda ser bendecido, y así vos podáis quebrar este destino mío para dejarme cruzar al otro lado de este falso sueño.
It's like a waiting room, essentially. I'm busy waiting on heaven.
Kind of a purgatory.
At least have some magazines.
No entertainment here, you're right.
Yeah.
De los pensamientos, de los
There is definitely a castle in the background, though.
instrumento que obtiene confesiones secretas y prohibidas, incluso de los que ya marcharon al otro lado del sueño. En nombre de las altas voluntades, yo bendigo esta reliquia.
Now, much later in the game, you will have to remember who the High Wills are, or what they are, I suppose. But that's for another time. For now, we've picked up yet another set of collectibles. These are relics. They are optional ways to, as the game puts it, change your perception of the world.
It lets you double jump.
It lets you... Well, actually, no, there is no double jump. But there are other movement options that are unlocked through relics.
See, that's why I keep mentioning the double jump, is because there isn't one. It's the
Exactly.
fabled skill that you wish you had to get over all those pits. But God did not grant you wings, did he?
Now, the Shroud of Dreamt Sins does allow us to hear the thoughts of the dead. Basically just unlocking more optional written logs, I guess.
Written logs, dialogue, and lore.
And hey, remember this door from the beginning of the first video?
Ah, yes, the locked door that we certainly remembered in the last video.
It is the most fascinating thing how easy it is to walk by this door without acknowledging its existence if you yourself do not notice it. Good thing we did.
I mean, to be fair, it is quite the backtrack, especially if you do it at this point in the game. But blood perpetuated in sand will make certain invisible platforms visible to us.
Ah.
It's wonderful that you only have 3 slots for these, but there are clearly more than 3 to find. So
Yeah.
may need to swap them out at some point in order to see things that others cannot with our enlightenment.
Exactly.
Do I... Wait, are you enlightened?
I am enlightened in real life, but I don't know about the game.
You're enlightened enough to stand on platforms that others are unable to use?
Someone dropped their painted wood bead. This is actually pretty good, especially, early on. It's a way to recover health when destroying objects. So we're gonna swap that out with the hollow circle.
Handy.
Well, see, I appreciate that the descriptions and the names of the beads somewhat imply what they do. This painted wood bead heals you by destroying the environment. and it talks about the environment itself being destroyed in the lore for the object. It all comes full circle. Speaking
And
of
this
full
is what
circle,
the-
yeah.
What the Shroud of Dreamt Sins allows us to do.
You can just listen to the thoughts of corpses, huh?
Exactly.
Why are they still thinking?
I think it's like the remnants of their soul passing on to the other side of the dream.
Oh, it probably takes a while. That fella with the linen, he told us that it's a pretty slow process. Well, this is a gorgeous room.
This is the local church of Alborough. We can pay tithes in order to upgrade it, make it look a little nicer, and potentially unlock some upgrades for us as well.
That's a lot of money.
Yeah, I was gonna say, like, how much are you expected to tithe for these rewards? Can you tithe at any time? Can you just grind out the tithing for the maximum reward?
You absolutely can. Although it takes a lot of tiers to fully upgrade everything in the church.
It is a Catholic sect, so when you say how much are you expected to tithe, the answer is yes.
All of it.
Yes.
Are you wearing a watch? Because God could use that watch.
Is that a Rolex? God loves bling. Yeah.
Oh, those are environmental objects?
Yes, they are.
Oh, well. Well then.
Those are people who have been twisted in the same type of effigy that we saw at the very beginning of the game. That particular imagery of a person twisting around the pole that looks like that graffiti S that was in every high schooler's notebook in the 2000s.
Yes.
They are shaped like the cool S.
I have no idea what those are actually called. Also, we unlocked the Inquisition achievement for completing a certain number of executions.
No one expects it. Not the least of which your enemies. Oh shit, you actually are the Spanish Inquisition. It's Catholicism. Huh.
Yep.
Well, about that, I guess the metaphor's a bit more literal. That's more than a joke achievement title.
It's only fitting that this game inspired by the Spanish Inquisition is played by a Canadian Jew.
See, I'm as American as apple pie, so I've got an American education, meaning they tried to indoctrinate me into all of this, and I would have thought it was even more awesome than it is.
Oh!
He pulled out every single intestine there like spaghetti unspooling on a fork.
Yeah, and that lady was naked to begin with, so there was not a lot of clothing to go through.
I was gonna say, like, this sword seems a little bit too sharp for its purpose. Are you sure we need to add any thorns to it? Because we're just like, the hardiest enemy we've fought so far was a tree.
Well, the thorns are more for the penitent one's sake.
Yeah, of course they are.
And hey, speaking of naked enemies,
This is my favorite enemy in the whole game. Lady riding a dude.
that is the Garda Infante.
What? I love this enemy. Lady riding a dude, and he hits you with the dead moose. Because
Yep.
why not?
These are mini bosses.
Oh,
What?
I love it.
What?
Yeah, those are like quasi mini bosses. They do not respawn when you rest out a prie-dieu, which is probably for the best, I think.
Oh my god.
I love that he's just perched under her dress like the most lewd thing you could imagine. Like, she's not riding on his shoulders, she's riding on top of the guy's dome, which is just, and covering his face, which is a thing in Catholicism. It's just perfect. It's so perfect and such a weird enemy design, and it's what this game is good at. Making you go, what is that? Why is it trying to kill me with a moose?
It's like they said, how crazy can we make this and still get away with it? And then they're like, okay, no, we don't care if we get away with it anymore.
You know what's funny though? You say that, but I actually didn't see much controversy about this game, lampooning Catholicism and all that. You'd think that the Puritans out there in gaming journalism and the Jack Thompsons would say, "Hey, you can't have a game about religion." Are you sure? Are you sure we can't?
If this game came out about 15 years earlier, maybe.
Oh, if this game had come out on like the PlayStation 1, hell
Yeah.
yeah.
But this
Yeah.
game came out in the year of our miracle 2019. So we are all we all know better, I suppose.
Well, we're able to discern context now, which is what I like about gaming and the place that it's in, is that people are able to look at games like this in the context, like we've been saying all along. It's not literally Catholic stories, just inspired by them. And
Well-
so they have license to make crazy Devil May Cry enemies.
Yeah. I guess it's also worth pointing out here that this is an enemy on a cross. The enemy is called Crucified, but crucifixion imagery is not religious in this world. Instead, you have the twisted effigy, the cool S. That is the equivalent of the cross in this universe. Whereas
Indeed.
here, crucifixion in this world is just a means of torture and execution.
Indeed, so if you've played the video game Disco Elysium, it is kind of like how in that game, the symbol for love still exists, but it's not a heart, it is the lungs. It's a similar situation in this game where the symbol for the Lord's suffering and pain that we all acknowledge, it's the cool S.
Mr. Everett is helping me find mea culpa.
Mr. Everard is helping me find mea culpa.
Where olive trees wither? Oh my god.
Now, this is the area that seems deliberately designed to lure first-time players into going here first. Of the 3 areas,
You are correct. This is where I went first.
this is where everyone goes first. Like the most recent attempted playthrough I saw was Wooly from Super Best Friends, formerly Super Best Friends. And basically it was 2 videos of him getting stuck in this area then giving up.
It's brutal. It's brutal compared to the other areas you can explore first, but it lures you into a false sense of security with this new movement mechanic. They're like, hey, you're going to be using this instead of fighting really hard enemies for a while, so surely it'll be easy, right? Right?
Let me introduce you to Dark Souls.
There's a particular NPC we're about to meet right here, which only solidifies that overconfidence.
Slow and insidious
What?
killer.
Un contrito y humillado sea, penitente en el silencio. Estáis ante lo que queda de Gémino. No os preocupéis por mí.
As much as I like the English voice acting, I really prefer most of the Spanish voice acting.
It's very smooth, yeah.
On the second run, we'll be playing the game in English.
Los demás haya llegado a mí, aquí, en este férreo sepulcro, haciendo que el desamparo dure más y más.
Yeah, the Spanish voice acting is really good. It's no Resident Evil 4 un forastero type of stuff. Like, they
You're
put
right,
effort
they all
in.
needed to be speaking in Mexican accents.
Yeah, exactly!
Las gotas de los óleos que una vez salieron de estos olivos helados y acabaron abrasando los rostros de todo piadoso que llegaba a la cima. Dejadme sentir ese dolor como mi última voluntad antes de que sea demasiado tarde para mí. Tomad esto.
Oh,
I like it. He can't go to the mountain, so bring the light of the mountain to him.
Se convierte en una
There are a lot of side quests about easing people's pain and letting them die in dignity.
Todavía siento la llamada.
which seems to be contra to everything else that we are seeing in this game.
Now,
True.
this is the other part of what I was talking about, first-time players' overconfidence. As soon as Hemido gives you that golden symbol, if you deviate from this path, if you go somewhere else and beat another boss, you cannot get the reward from Hemido until much later in the game.
You have to commit.
Oh.
You have to climb to the top of the mountain and give him or return the thimble that has a bunch of oil in it as soon as you can.
It is one of the ways that this game is a little bit obtuse. A little bit.
Deliberately so.
It's hard to keep all that in mind while you're also doing death-defying platforming. So, like, players like me may pick up the thimble and then forget that they have to deliver it to him before he freezes to death against a tree.
Yeah, I think in terms of like what the game designers were going for, it is that this area is easily the hardest of the 3 starting areas, and thus they encourage you to give up and then forget about Hemino, and then you come back later and he's already dead. I'm actually going to be showing that off in the second run. Also, hello, new enemy.
No! Sand shark ghosts?
I believe those are called floor divers. I thought I'd written down all of the enemy types that we'll be encountering. Their names don't actually show up in the game proper. They're only listed in the in-game manual. Or, well, I suppose these days it's a PDF of the manual.
Oh, that's so good, though. That's so good that they have an enemy cast roll so that they do have official names. So that they're not just listed as, like, Land Shark Gribbly Guy on the wiki. Everything being given official names is more lore and story for them. Like,
well,
these
not to spoil
flagellants.
things, but Land Shark Gribbly Guy might be an enemy later on in the game with that exact name.
Ah, damn it. I'm sorry. I apologize. I told you I didn't get that far in. When we run into Land Shark Gribbly Guy, at least we'll know what to do. This was good training.
So there is a particular, one particular enemy spawn of the flagellant enemies that is glitched out when it comes to executions and seems to have a much lower success rate when it comes to stunning them to get them ready for a riposte. You may also have noticed, for anyone who has played the game, you notice that I've had a much better rate of execution in terms of like stunning enemies. And that's because there's a specific timing for it. The game says that you should wait until the moment that the blade hits an enemy and time it there. I have found that a more consistent timing is as the penitent one is, you know, he brings his sword back. As he is swinging it forward, that first frame, you hit X then, and there's like a 75 to 80% chance that the enemy will be stunned.
You do extra stun damage that way. I had no idea. That's interesting. I mean, the game has that as a central mechanic. You can do it to almost any enemy, and so it's kind of interesting that they give you a way to do it on command.
Well, the game also kind of fudges it in terms of, you know, telling you what the timing is supposed to be.
Right, the explanation is lacking, but the mechanic is there, and I think that's pretty cool, because they sure didn't have to do that.
So that prie-dieu that I just activated, that is the only prie-dieu that we will see until we reach the summit of the mountain.
Yes, indeed. That's part of why this area is so damn hard, is because there are zippity zero places to recover your flasks.
They really want you to work for it.
There is one area, I believe, that you can recover your flask, but it costs tears, and it only works once per run, or at least until you access another prie-dieu.
Look in the background. I love the giant statues that are weeping frozen tears.
Oh yeah, that's such a great thing.
Fella in the foreground. Fella in the foreground is a great enemy type too. Look at that execution. Just pull his skeleton out of the coffin to beat him with it. Oh. But I love the implication that the coffin is the real enemy there.
All right, I do not seem to have written down the enemy names for this particular one, this particular area. I was pretty detailed for the first video. I must have forgotten. But I'll like put them on screen or something.
Oh, I adore that we can kind of intuit what they are probably based on the type of enemy they are. Like, it's wonderful how there have been standard platforming enemies, like the Medusa heads from Castlevania appeared as those wraiths that were shooting fireballs and knocked you off the bridge, killed you in one hit. That was a classic Castlevania death. And then you've got enemies that hover around you shooting fireballs. It's hitting all the notes.
I like to think that one of the enemy designers went, you know what my favorite part of Devil May Cry was? When if you stood too close to a door, it would attack you. And they just made an entire enemy out of that.
Doors that are mimics is one of the rudest things you can do. And I'm glad that there are some video games that have bothered to. But that's the question, is how like Devil May Cry really is this? Does it have
Not at all.
DPS race tests?
Oh, there is nothing stylish about this game's combat. Maybe the air impulse. And one move later on, which I'll save for later. But aside from that, like there is all of the combat, save for the executions, is about function, because within this game's narrative, combat is representative of taking on your enemy's sins and easing their pain in life. When you take the Tears of Atonement, you are absorbing their guilt and their pain and suffering.
Not really something that you want to get all ego about and start doing cartwheels, adding flips and stuff.
You're not getting an S rank out of that kind of combat.
Yeah. Yeah.
I mean, you kind of have no choice when your sword is named Mea Culpa.
I do like, though, that it's not very flashy. It's still exciting to look at and interesting to look at, but it's intentionally subdued, because, like, your guy's on a mission here. He's not trying to look cool. But there are still so many little gameplay caveats of action games. Like, when you parry an attack and you slide backwards toward a ledge, you can't fall off that ledge if you parried the attack. Whereas if the enemy hit you, you'll just go flying right off.
I mean, the penitent one is wearing a caparot. I'm pretty sure he's not concerned about looking cool.
Oh, here's where you can restore your flasks.
Yeah, and it costs money to do so. And also, we will be picking up some empty bile flasks later on, which will give you extra flasks, and that's also those kinds of stations there are where you upgrade them.
Or alternatively, I have seen Survivor Man, and so I know that those bottles can be used for the penitent one's urine if he happens to have to go on the mountain. It's a long climb.
Well, the problem with that is that Bear Grylls would have to take a vow of silence. I think he would rather die than do that.
You know what? A TV host taking a vow of silence would be pretty funny. If for the rest of the episode there was no narration at all. David Attenborough takes a vow of silence halfway into a nature documentary.
Why would you deprive us of that?
For some reason that reminds me of a humor that hasn't aged well, but it was a particular review of. There was a Jackie Chan movie that relied on a lot of CGI from the early 2000s, and the reviewer complained, which, again, this is not a joke that has aged well, for fair warning, that it was using wires and CGI with Jackie Chan is like putting Pamela Anderson on the radio. What's the point?
I do see the point in their statement. Yes, that's fair. They make a pair of pretty good points with that statement.
But enough about Pamela Anderson. Let's get back to the game.
Yeah, speaking of vows of silence, what do you know? You got a muted bell.
Yeah, there are multiple rosaries that are specifically meant to prevent you against magical attacks. Although the way that some enemies work and the way that their attacks are classified, it can be confusing as to what, for example, qualifies as an elemental versus a magical attack. Thankfully there were about 4 or 5 attempts to climb this mountain that I cut out, along with this one that I left in.
Real bullied there.
Yeah.
Oh, that was brutal. You did not deserve to get bullied that hard.
Having just gone through this area in New Game Plus, where, without going into details, New Game Plus allows you to play with certain restrictions, and this was one of the hardest parts to do, even with, carrying over all of my upgrades from my original run.
I can't wait. I'm looking forward to it. I love that you said that this is the hardest path to take first.
Yeah,
and so
of
you
the
are.
starting areas.
Yeah, that's probably my favorite thing about this, is that what you said was, you shouldn't do this if you play the game, but we're gonna.
Well, the beginner's trick is that you go here first, and we're going here second. Is you could do this before Mercy Dreams, before fighting Ten Piedad. We also just upgraded our fervor.
Oh, yes.
Damn, those hidden walls are really worth finding. Note to self, to start swinging the sword at every wall.
Yeah, that's what I end up doing, and that'll be the drinking game for this Let's Play, is when I fail at it.
Is there a way to know?
No, aside from pure memorization. There really isn't a way.
On the map or anything, you can't like look for squares that aren't filled in or whatever.
No, they will look they will look closed.
That's brutal. That's brutal, given that was a pretty crucial upgrade hidden back there. They really didn't want you to find that thing.
Yeah, and those the health and fervor upgrades do not carry over to New Game Plus. You have to grab those again.
Oh.
Makes sense then that you can plan out your route on future playthroughs of the game. That's what I like about it, is that they let you visit any of these.
I have a whole spreadsheet of what collectibles I'm going to be getting at various points.
Yeah, exactly. Like, there are so many collectibles that change how you play.
Well, we've finally reached the summit. I absolutely love this background here.
Just
so
gorgeous.
Beautiful.
I love that the mountains continue to stretch on even further into the background.
Mm-hmm.
There's probably even more people carved into those.
They put a lot of love into this design.
Sí, hermana mía. Nuestro encuentro se acerca. El milagro me protegerá. No necesito vuestro amparo esta vez. Dejadme solo.
Come on, sis, leave me alone. I could do this myself. Well, we've done it. We have reached the summit of whatever this place is. I'm sure we'll find out about it next time. But yeah, that is the area that the game tricks every starting player into going to first, and they learn the hard way that you shouldn't do that.
Including me. I made it to the top. I think I completed it according to my Chivos. And then that was the last of Blasphemous that I played for myself. So the rest of this journey is completely blind. I'm really excited.
So without going into details, do you remember the boss fight coming up at the end of this next
Sure
area?
do. Oh,
Okay.
I sure do.
All right, we'll leave it unspoiled for
God.
Roy, but it is one of the more memorable bosses in a game pretty much filled exclusively with memorable bosses.
Look forward to it, mi amigos. Look forward to it. If you thought this game's content warnings were a joke, don't you worry. The game will.
Yeah.
The game will prove us all fools in
Yeah,
time.
there's a reason I'm putting that title card at the start of every video. Because it needs it.
The viewer's about to find out. I can just feel it in my bones. Like, it is so brutal and so beautiful.
It really is.
Is it brutal? It's brutal?
It's
It's
beautiful.
It's beautiful.
Yes.
It's beautiful, but you put an umlaut over the U. It's beautiful.